I never drew stick figures. At least that's the story my mom tells me when I ask her about the first time I began to draw. This was the opening line of the personal statement I wrote on my law school application to GW Law in 2017. I followed it by explaining a bit more about my creative view of the world. From an early age, I always drew a whole human figure, I said, with a full round body decorated with clothes, various hairstyles, ears and eyes, with pupils and eyelashes. In other words, I've always drawn people exactly as they are, or exactly as I see them, as whole people. It's that seeing people, especially women, holistically, that I hope is conveyed by this 9 Portraits of Women in the Law exhibit. Now, that hook in my personal statement wasn't quite enough to land me a spot at GW Law right away. I am proof that a waitlisted student, a first-generation student, and a student with an untraditional educational background, which includes attending community college, has every opportunity and ability to succeed alongside her peers at an esteemed university. I can remember driving down to Washington, D.C. one day in March of 2018, just to pop in the Dean of Admissions office, say hello, and give my best nervous, desperate pitch for a seat at this particular institution. Dean Sim welcomed me into her office, and the first thing that caught my eye was the artwork created by her children decorating the walls of her office. In that moment, something in me said, this is the place I'm supposed to go to law school. Thankfully, after many more phone calls and trips to the Dean of Admissions office, Dean Sim agreed, and I was offered a full-time position into GW Law's class of 2021. And here I am, 3 incredibly long but short, chaotic, and dare I say, unprecedented years later, able to share with you all some of my own personal artwork of women whose whole selves showed up at this very same law school, years before many of us here today were even born, and they were left completely unrecognized. Some denied diplomas they had to write letters just to receive, passed over for positions as partners at firms or law clerks for judges, just because they could have babies someday. And until very recently, a woman never even assumed the position as the George Washington University Law School Dean. Dean Matthew, your presence at this law school means so much to so many of us, and we are honored to recognize you as our dean. When I got to GW Law's campus my first year, one of the things I was most excited about was the fact that there was a textile art museum right across the university quad. At first, I thought I'd spend study breaks roaming that gallery, but turns out law school is a lot of studying and not a lot of breaks. So my first year, I spent most of my time head buried in the books, sitting outside the Jacob Burns Library on the 2nd floor of Stockton Hall. When my tired eyes peeled themselves from pages, I'd look up and see the portraits that were hanging at the walls all around me. There were 9 portraits, actually. Turns out all 9 of those portraits were former deans of GW Law, and all of them were men. Also, during my first year of law school, my classmates and I were privileged to attend a symposium featuring the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, during which the moderator asked her the infamous question, when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court? And the notorious justice responded, when there are 9, of course. When there are 9. Throughout the rest of my 1L year, the justice words played over and over in my head, and I'd pass those 9 portraits of men in Stockton Hall and repeat after her, when there are 9. I was at wit's end by the 2nd semester of my 1L year, exhausted, ready to give up, forget the law, and call it the good old college try. Instead of quitting, I made a pact to myself. Run for the position of president for the Law Association for Women. If you get it, stay. If you don't, leave. No one else even ran. So my 2L year, I served as president of GW's Law Association for Women. And it was then that I began planning what has now become 9 portraits of women in the law. I created 7 of these portraits in 1 month, February 2020, right before the pandemic hit, thinking this event was going to be in person at the end of March of last year. COVID clearly had other plans, so we've adapted, along with the rest of the world, to a virtual version. The 8th portrait I created a year later, just last month, and the 9th portrait was created by my talented fellow classmate, Rachel Singer, whom you just heard from. You'll notice throughout the week as the images are unveiled that no 2 portraits of these women are exactly alike. While the medium used for every portrait, acrylic paint, is the same, each portrait has its own style and impression, and I did that purposefully to show the individual identity of each woman. It's my attempt to show that there is diversity in who a woman is and in what women can do. Whether you are a current JD, LLM, or international student, a full-time, part-time, or evening student, if you look closely, I hope you see a version of yourself in at least one of these women. The one woman I felt most strongly connected to as I painted was Peggy Cooper K. Fritz, who was born in Mobile, Alabama, and moved to Washington, D.C. just as desegregation was beginning. She was alumna of both GW University and GW Law. She became the co-founder of the Duke Ellington School of the Arts here in Washington, D.C. She was also a fierce advocate for the arts, and especially for minority artists. It's her spirit I hope to emulate the most in my own career path. My hope is also that this event gives each of these women a place to be seen for her whole self, not hidden in dark corners of hallways or behind glass-sealed display cases, and not a stick figure version where women are reduced to the shapes of their bodies or presumed to lack depth of character because of her sex. Rather, I hope one day these portraits and many other portraits of women in the law are displayed on walls and hallways side by side with their male counterparts in equal stature, so that the students who attend this law school know that their sex is not something that can hold them back in their careers, and so all students can have a visual perspective that they do in fact belong here. As women, we already know that we're made up of many things, and we have much more to contribute to the world than what has previously been offered to us. So I say, as long as there are spaces, there will be women in those places. To close, I don't want to create an illusion that this was a one-woman show. As Susie Hoffman, another former GW Law alumna, recently shared in an interview with the DC Bar's Let's Brief It podcast, quote, "Women can really empower other women through mentoring them and through supporting them in their careers." Our motto as an organization this year has truly been, "Behind every great woman are other great women." And I'll concede a few good men too. There are many names I want to recognize for the efforts and contributions they made in making this event even possible in the first place. And I apologize at the outset if there's anyone I missed. The first and most important is my mom, who conveniently is also named Belva. I had never known another person who shared my mom's name until I came to GW Law and discovered that the first woman to graduate from GW Law was Belva Ann Lockwood. I am thankful to both Belvas for the paths they pushed and paved to get me here today. I'd also like to thank the Law E-Board, both of this year and last. Ty, Catherine, Alexa, Nora, Julia, Tracy, Jess, Marina, Caitlin, and Rebecca. You are all leaders in your own right and in your own way. Your futures as attorneys is what I am most excited to see. Rachel Singer, your vision for the creation of Helen Newman's portrait from the moment I handed you that canvas in the soft lounge before the whole world turned upside down has been perfection. Your skills as an artist and as a future lawyer has done so much justice for Helen Newman's legacy. I hope you carry her memory and your grandmother's memory with you wherever you go. To the 3 1Ls who managed not only to stay on top of coursework, but also in their spare time, research the bios of women featured in this exhibit, reached out to potential panelists and will moderate discussions with practitioners, and who brainstormed, advised, and created the brilliant flyers to advertise this event, Alexandra, Michelle, and Victoria, you are all the most hardworking 1Ls ever. Thank you. To Miss Bobby, Carolyn, Megan, and Katie White, all of whom helped plan this event in its in-person version first, and then also in its now virtual version. We as students will never really be able to express how much we appreciate you all and your effort you regularly put in, seen and unseen, to make our law school experiences worthwhile. Personally, I'd like to thank Dean Sim for accepting me into GW Law and for opening the door that has led to all of these possibilities. And Andra, thank you for sitting with me in your office on good days and bad days and seeing it through that I complete this law degree. To all the professors at GW Law, especially Professor Bronice, who suggested names of women I should paint and has given his own time to create a place for the arts at GW Law. Dean Pagel, who shared resources and assisted in the research of these women's stories, Professor Schoenbaum and Professor Meyer for your constant support of this event, for creating classrooms where students can thrive in learning the law and speaking and sharing your personal experiences at this event and others. Professor Gambert, Professor Suter, and Professor Weisberg, who are all advisors for the Law Association for Women, thank you for your time and commitment to our organization and our student members. We are so, so grateful. To my friends and future colleagues, it's been my honor to learn and work alongside you. I look forward to what career and life experiences await all of us. And finally, to my former art teachers, Mr. Valino, Mrs. Chapina, Jeff, Mrs. Ranieri, Kathy, Imogene, and Brother Mark. Thank you for training, equipping, encouraging, and never doubting my talent or ability in the arts. I am an artist because you helped me believe in myself. The list could go on, but lastly, I'd like to thank all of you for your participation in this 9 Portraits of Women in the Law event. I hope you enjoy seeing these portraits as much as I have enjoyed painting them. Thank you.